Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Applications Board for Monday, the 9th of December 2024. Can I remind you that the meeting has been recorded and the recording will be made available on the Comhairle's website following the meeting. Item number 1 on today's agenda is to approve the minutes of our meeting last week on the 3rd of December. Do members agree to those minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Item number 2 is declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they may have in any items of the agenda. It would be helpful if members explained why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Do we have any declarations of interest from members? No. With regards to procedures, any motion or amendment in relation to a planning application must be solely based on planning reasons. If a member moves an amendment, the chair will invite him or her to clearly articulate the amendment and the planning reasons upon which it is based. Thereafter, the chair, at his discretion, may continue the business of the meeting in accordance with the time-out protocol. The planning manager for the development management team will present the recommendation of officers. In the event of a member seeking to move an amendment, the chair may call upon the legal advisor or the planning advisor to provide advice to the board. Thank you for that. Now moving on to item 3 on this afternoon's agenda. This is the replacement of 3 existing 2-bladed wind turbines of 46 metre to tip at Monan Wind Farm, with 3 bladed wind turbines with a tip height of up to 86 metres and associated infrastructure on the Isle of Harris. Now, this planning application is considered by the appointed officer to be sensitive and in accordance with a scheme of delegation is referred to the board for determination. And online we have Morag Ferguson, who will now speak to the report. Over to you, Mrs. Ferguson.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so as the Chair said, this is the planning application to repower the existing Monaghan wind farm in North Harris by way of replacing the existing 3-number 2-bladed wind turbines, which are 46 metres to the tip, with 3 new turbines of 86 metre tip, each one with 3 blades. And the site is located at Comhairle in just north of Ardhassick in Harris. So this location plan shows going diagonally across the screen the road that runs from Harbert up to Stornoway. The road on the left here, the B road, is the road coming in from Hushinish, Creasamouth to join with the Tarbert Road. And there is a housing development, an HHP housing development in this location. The repowering of the wind farm will be within the boundaries of the existing site, which is indicated in red on the slide here. So in terms of context, the site is out with the settlement in relation to spatial strategy. It's an existing wind farm. The application site is about 20 hectares, 50 acres, and it is about 1.5 kilometres away from the nearest housing at the furthest section and 800 metres at the nearest. The application site itself is within the South Lewis Harris and North Uist National Scenic Area, as is the whole of Harris. It is also within the southern edge of the Harris-Uig Hills Wildland Area. It's approximately 1 kilometre away from the west coast of the Outer Hebrides Special Protection Area. And the North Harris Special Protection Area, the SAC and the SSI are all approximately 1 kilometre to the west and northwest. This existing aerial view shows the A865 running here along Loch Morrigan, which will look at a visualisation from this position. This here is the Ardhazy quarry, or Kellanora quarry. The existing wind farm and the access track is here. So what you have is you have a turbine here, here, and here. So 3 turbines in total, and the substation building is already existing down here. The application proposes that these turbines the site be repowered. So there is a kind of change in layout, and maybe before I come off this slide, I'll maybe just indicate. So this turbine will remain where it is. So this part of the this will become redundant effectively. This turbine here will be almost like the length of the track again to this side. So it'll be here, and then the road will loop round here, and just between this wee lohan and this bend in the access track, there will be the 3rd turbine. So the positions of them will be slightly different to the existing ones, but they will remain within the site. So the turbines were originally granted planning consent in 2008 under planning reference 06290, and the proposal is to replace the 2-bladed turbines of 46-metre tip height which were installed under the terms of that planning permission. A new hard standing area will be required for the cranes for the erection of each turbine location, and we'll cover that in the next slide. And new foundations will be required for each of the new turbines. There will also be a need for temporary construction compounds and parking and welfare facilities at the site for the duration of the construction. So the proposal is that there will be 370 metres of new access track proposed, and they will reuse 930 metres of the existing track. And they will reuse the existing substation and the turning and passing places that were on the site. So coming in off the main road, there will be a compound here in orange. Substations already down in this area. They'll reuse this existing track. It's a passing place lay-by here. And at the moment, one of the turbines is located at the head of this grey existing track. So they will extend that track to the west, and the new turbine will be erected slightly further west of the existing. Then they'll continue this extension of the track to the south. Another area here for hard standing, crane hard standing, and turbine here. And then staying on the existing track, this turbine will be in largely the same place as the existing, and again crane hard standing. Now the design has taken account of the peat depths across the site, and there's been a detailed peat depth survey as well as ecological survey undertaken in order that the environmental mitigation is mitigated as far as possible through the actual design of the wind farm. The slide just shows a typical turbine elevation. So the hub height will be 59 metres and the tip height 86. So the principle of the development is not revisited as the use of the site is existing, and the existing wind farm was incorporated within the baseline position for the EIA report. The main topics that are addressed in the EIA report and in the planning assessment are firstly the carbon balance, the landscape and visual amenity impacts, and also that includes the impacts on the National Scenic Area and on wildland, with the wind farm situated within both. Ornithological and ecological impacts, also the requirement for biodiversity enhancement to be secured, water environment. There's a fairly robust chapter on hydrology, and that includes matters such as soil and peat also, and then the decommissioning and site restoration. So the wind farm is for a 35-year, they're seeking consent for a 35-year period. The carbon payback, or the carbon balance, first of all, is the carbon saving minus the carbon lost in terms of constructing the components and the wind farm itself and the ultimate decommissioning. So what's classed as the carbon payback time, i.e. how long it'll need to be operating before you start to get into a carbon positive situation, and in this case it's been estimated to be 2 years. Now, there is also a further calculation carried out through the carbon calculator. So based on average electricity consumption for your average household in Scotland in 2022, it's expected that the wind farm will produce enough electricity to power an additional 1,884 homes per year. In terms of carbon losses, they're summarised and include, for example, activities, as I've said, of the manufactured construction, loss of carbon from soil organic matter. And then over its lifetime, it's expected that it will result in carbon dioxide savings of just over 200,000 tonnes. And that this is the main positive effect of the proposed repowering proposal, proposed development. So in common with most wind farms, the key planning issue, key negative planning issue is generally landscape and visual. So as I said, the existing wind farm has been incorporated within the baseline for the wind farm, baseline for the EIA rather, and a detailed landscape and visual impact assessment has been carried out. We've examined that EIA and we've sought input from, and it's been provided by Nature Scot. So the site itself is located within the prominent hills and mountains landscape character type and the mountain massif landscape character type, and that's on account of it being situated in the hills just just beyond the Cleisham, which is the highest hill in the Outer Hebrides, and there are various other hilltops round about. It's also within the South Lewis Harris and North Uist National Scenic Area, and 2 of the 3 turbines are located in the southernmost corner of the Harris to Uig Hills wildland area. So it's concluded that the proposed development would have slightly greater impact than the existing development, but it would not be of such a sufficient change that it would significantly alter the existing landscape character. Further, visually, the turbines would be more prominent, and significant visual effects are only predicted from 2 of the 4 viewpoint locations. But the conclusion following advice is that the increased height never causes them to appear dominant or overbearing on the visual receptors. And that includes people travelling on the road that surround the site. And the final conclusion is that it will result in an element of landscape change, but it won't result in significant harm to landscape character, to visual impacts, or to the special qualities of the National Scenic Area, or indeed to the wildland area. So there are now 4 viewpoints. This one is taken at Loch Voragin, and you're basically facing east, running up towards the wind farm site. So you can see, like within the viewshed here, these are the positions of the 3 turbines. So you're on the road here, so on the main road heading towards Tarbert. So from that viewpoint, there is very little visibility of the existing turbines. Possibly one of the tip spots over the horizon. But with the new turbines from this viewpoint, they will be visible for a short distance on that section of road. second viewpoint will be the one that's most familiar to us of the wind farm as you're heading north from Tarbert here, past through Ardhazic, and just as you come round past the petrol station, there's a house on the right here, and you're looking towards the 3 turbines on the hill here. So this is the existing wind farm, and you can see these are the 3 blade tips here. Turbine to the right is probably the one that is most visual, and that one will be replaced. So they sit just behind this hill ridge and the Clesham frame, the view in the background, provide a backcloth to the development. We took this photo ourselves because the visualization isn't as clear, because you need to get where the 2-bladed turbines, you need to have them all turning at the right point to see the blade tips. So at the moment you'll see the blade tips for these, and you actually see slightly more of the third one. And then as you carry on, this is the visualization, professional visualization that's been prepared. So all 3 turbines will be visible, but again they'll have the backcloth of the Clesham behind. So the conclusion is, while there will be a change in view, it's not going to change the landscape character overall, and because the views are contained, it won't affect the overall special qualities of the National Scenic Area. So this next one is taken from Loch na Keistia, and again, for those familiar on the road, it's the loch that where the new road is that was built about 20 years ago, and the road just sweeps past the loch and the turbines are up on your right. So this is the section of the new road, Kelnora Quarry, down here, Loch na Keistia. And at the moment, you do see the blade tips, or certainly one of the blade tips popping over the top here. It's another of the turbines there. But under the new proposal, sorry, that's just another photograph that we've taken ourselves, showing, so actually all 3 are just, visible on the horizon. And with the proposal, they'll be more dominant. Then the final viewpoint is taken coming in from Ansuya Castle and from Ushinish, Clayson School, coming in the main road towards Binvenator. And here again, you can see the Clesham under snow here. I can't remember the name of this hill, but the turbines basically appear here in this kind of valley. And again, from this viewpoint at the moment, I think you'll just see turbine tips. And when the new turbines are installed, if consented, they would appear here again for a short duration of the period that you're on that road, just over a short stretch. Okay, so the next key planning issue was ornithology, ecology and biodiversity enhancement. Golden eagle is the main ornithological interest. It's obviously a Schedule 1 species, and the survey information to do with that has been kept sensitive for as you are required to do for species that enjoy that level of protection. There's also been a fairly extensive habitat survey, NVC classification survey, protected species surveys and biodiversity enhancement. And in addition to some of the biodiversity enhancement that's proposed on site in relation to reinstating of verges, the main part of the enhancement is to be secured off site, and that's an agreement between the developer and the North Harris Trust to do 3 planting. And as it's to be off site, it needs to be secured through the Section 75 planning obligation. So the conclusion on these topics is that, subject to relevant conditions, species protection plans, engaging the services of an ecological clerk of works, and habitat management and monitoring plans, that the proposed development is not likely to have an adverse effect on ecology or ornithology, and unlikely to have an adverse effect on the integrity of the various designated sites that are shown on the slide there. So in relation to water environment, and there's a chapter on hydrology in the EIA report, and this is assess the predicted impacts and effects both during construction, during operation, and subsequently during the decommissioning stage of the development. In the same way that discussed earlier, mitigation has been built into the design. So the environmental impacts have been reduced by carefully siting the proposed infrastructure, including the wind turbines and the crane hard standings, to avoid the deepest peat. There will be, it's proposed in terms of mitigation that they'll adopt best practice during the construction phase. So there will be minor micrositing once the excavations actually take place. That's permitted by condition, and there will be restoration enhancement of the site immediately post the construction phase, so that for the 35 years that it's operating, that the site is left in good condition, and there will be a peat management plan, an outline version of which has been submitted. So these mitigation measures will be secured by condition. And as I said, the decommissioning and restoration, 35 years hence, measures for that and the off-site biodiversity enhancement would be secured by a Section 75 agreement. And overall, the conclusion again on that topic is that it would not result in a material change in impact to that experienced from the existing established use of the site. And then the other planning issues that were covered, and I haven't got into them in any detail here, they're covered in your reports: telecommunications and infrastructure, traffic and transport, aviation and radar, decommissioning of the scheme, and as we get in most construction projects, potential for noise, dust, light, vibration, disturbance issues, and all of these can be mitigated by fairly standard conditions. So it's concluded, based on the examination of the EIA report and the planning assessment that's been carried out, that when all the factors are weighed up, the proposed development would not result in any material change overall in the impacts arising when you compare those to those impacts currently experienced from the existing established use of the site. And that's all subject to the proposed mitigations, these to be secured by condition and the execution of a Section 75 planning obligations agreement. So the recommendation has been updated to that and presented in your reports on account of us omitting to include the Section 75 arrangements within the report. So if it's okay, Chair, I will just read out the amended recommendation. So it is recommended that the EIA planning application be approved, subject to the conditions set out in Appendix 1 to this report. And secondly, that the Chief Executive be authorised to complete a Section 75 planning obligation with the developer and the relevant land interests to secure, firstly, the ultimate site decommissioning and site reinstatement arrangements for the site, and secondly, a financial contribution by the developer for off-site biodiversity enhancement measures, these to be executed in conjunction with the North House Trust. That concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Ferguson, and can I thank yourself and Mr. Ian MacLeod for this very extensive report. I would now like to open this out to members of the board if they have any questions in the chamber or online. questions or comments? Therefore, do members agree with the recommendations set out at paragraph 3.1 with the addition of, and I quote, that the Chief Executive be authorised to complete a Section 75 planning obligation with the developer and relevant land interests to secure the ultimate site decommissioning and site reinstatement arrangements and a financial contribution by the developer to secure off-site biodiversity enhancement measures, these to be executed in conjunction with the North Harris Trust. Do members of the board agree with those recommendations?
Agree.
Agree.
Thank you. That's unanimous. That's therefore the decision at that item, Mr. Mackay. Well, with that, can I thank you all for your attendance to this last planning board meeting of the year. And until we meet again next year, can I wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.